Gentlemen, what's an absolute no-no for a girl to do on a first date? I was on a first date with a girl and everything was going great. We had a nice dinner and the conversation was great. After dinner, she asked if we could head to the bar where I had met her the week before. I said, sure, no problem. We get to the bar, order a couple of drinks, and we're having a pretty good time. She points out that the guy she dated for a few months, let's call him Chad, was there. It's kind of an awkward thing to bring up, but whatever. I kind of know Chad since he's a regular at the bar and we have some mutual friends. I didn't know he and my date used to go out. Chad sees that I'm with her and soon leaves the bar. A few minutes later, my date starts checking her phone and texting someone. I go order another round of drinks. When I get back, my date asks if it would be okay if she went back to Chad's house. I told her she could do whatever she wanted to, then said goodnight and went home alone. She texted me an hour later apologizing and said that Chad wouldn't let her in. She then asked if she could come to my house. I politely declined and went to sleep. So I would say trying to fool around with your ex is a huge no-no for a girl to do on the first date. It's a huge no-no for everything. What do you mean? Story 2. I told this in another thread, but being too clingy. Here's the story. Met her online and we chatted for a while. She told me about how her ex-husband fooled with her best friend and they ran away together. That actually explained a lot. One night we agreed to meet up after I got off work. The entire day she called me baby, said she loved me and texted nonstop. If I didn't answer her texts right away, she would blow up my phone with calls. She knew where I was. Then during the last 2 hours of my shift, she would count down. Only 2 hours. An hour, 45, hour, 30, and so on until the last 20 minutes, then it was every minute. Finally, when my shift was over, she texted me 3 or 4 times if I was on my way. Finally had enough and told her no, I wasn't and it wasn't going to happen. Then she starts with the pictures of her crying. I had to freaking ghost her for 2 days before she stopped. Poor girl didn't even make it to starting the first date. Why do some people jump the gun? Story 3. She cut me off when the waiter came over and ordered my drink and meal in the name of gender equality. I mean, I guess she is equally as much as a schmuck. I just put the poor execution down to nerves and gave the benefit of the doubt. Then she later got very aggressive while we were discussing our cars. She mentioned that she was just about to spend 150 pounds getting her head gasket replaced. I mentioned that 150 pounds wasn't close to enough to have it done properly, and that it would likely fail again, and recommended my mechanic. She blew off the handle, calling me a misogynistic pig and that she didn't need it mansplained to her. It failed again 2 weeks later and was beyond the point of being worth fixing. Needless to say, I did not want a second date. For you and for her, you guys gotta work on delivery, I would say. Story 4. Don't meet me at your favorite local pub and then spend the entire day talking to your friends and the regulars and ignore me entirely. Then come there to talk to Pete in the corner of the bar. Don't fool with someone else while I'm in the next room at the party you dragged me to. Okay, it's a first date and we're far from exclusive at this point, but what the heck? Come to think of it, don't take me to a party on the first date. Don't intentionally dress like a slob to make sure I'll like you for you. I'm not superficial and I want to know who you really are, but if you look like a wreck, that doesn't say a lot about you. I don't like freaking games. Don't tell me your grandfather is coming over so I should go and it's really one of your friends with benefits. All of these happened. Story 5. True story time. Girl asked me out, which was nice for a change. We were both in our late teens and she said, let's just have fun. Sure, okay, nothing serious. I met her at a bowling alley. Her friend and her 3 juvenile cousins. Okay. Proceed to bowl. Definitely weird that she has 4 people for support. And as per her suggestion, we all go to a billiards hall afterwards. I get a table. After about 10 minutes, she nopes out with her friend, and I'm left with her 3 juvenile male cousins. And the tab for the table. I literally was asked out to pay for the privilege of babysitting 3 kids I didn't know. She calls a few more times, and I never return her calls. Years later, I see her on Facebook, and it turns out she's a lesbian, and everything makes perfect sense now. So ladies, if you're in the closet, don't waste time asking out stray guys if you really just want someone to babysit your cousins as a sham alibi to keep your identity from your parents. Just pay for a babysitter, bro. Story 6. Met a girl rock climbing once. We flirted a lot, but nothing came of it because we were both with our families. Flash forward 2 years. She finds me on Facebook. Guess that should have been a red flag, but whatevs. And says she's in the city for an acting thing and asks if I want dinner. So she comes over and is immediately down to clown. We get frisky. Things go places, and about 5 minutes in, I realize I'm covered from my waist to my knees with mess. I ask, hey, everything okay? Didn't hurt you, did I? I knew she wasn't hurt. I was just trying to be gentle about it. She says, oh, don't worry, it's just that time of the month. My sheets are now ruined. but I'm 20 and hot to trot. I just kind of suck it up and finish the deed. We shower, separately, and get all cleaned up. The Neanderthal in me just wants to kick her out. I got my rocks off. Why should she stay? But the part of my brain that isn't a complete piece of crap decided the least I could do was take this girl out to dinner. So we went to a very nice place and the date is going fine. That is, until I asked about her family. I literally asked, "What does your dad do for a living?" And that was all it took to bring her to DEF CON crazy. She starts sobbing, uncontrollably, like slams her head onto her arms on the table and wails while taking those deep crying breaths. Oh crap, I thought. But it was too late. The dam was breached. No time to evacuate the town. The metaphorical floodwaters poured in. "He's a piece of crap. He's leaving my mom after everything she's done for him. She even lies to the MPs when they come asking about his whereabouts." She proceeds to expand upon this by loudly and dramatically telling me about how her dad is AWOL from the Navy and she hates him. At the apex of this rant, she stands up, like Leonidas, and bellows, "It's not fair!" and swipes her arm across the table, knocking everything to the ground. I kid you not. Everyone in the restaurant is silent and staring at us. I hastily throw down way more money than the bill, grab her by the hand, and get us the heck out of there. I drive her back to her car in silence, and when we get there, she asks, "Did I ruin it? Can we have another date?" Trying not to get harmed or start another crazy wailing session, I lie to her. No, you didn't ruin it. Talk to you later," and kick her out of the car. Immediately blocked her number. Never put your Johnson crazy. Story 7. Please do not take the last slice of pizza. You're the woman, and I respect that you deserve to be treated like a lady, but don't just assume that you're the one who's going to get the last slice of pizza. There are many things to take into consideration. Who drove to the pizza place? Who had the first slice of pizza? The saying goes, ladies first, not ladies last. Assuming I took you on a date to a pizza place, I probably insisted on picking you up. Therefore, I have already spent money on gas and planned ahead, thus spending time and energy to do so, and I probably let you pick your seat and pulled out the chair for you. Finally, I assumed that I let you have the first slice of pizza because you're worth it and I'm interested in you. That last slice of pizza, however, it may still be yours, but don't assume so. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Or in this case, pie. Thanks for listening. I love you. Jeez, this guy really likes his pizza, huh? Story 8. Once went on a date with a solid 8.9 out of 10. Was super excited, she even agreed. Our first date was to go get something to eat at the Olive Garden. I know. Then go see a movie. I met her there and she's all dressed up and I'm still just flabbergasted that she agreed to date someone like me. She's got it all. The face, the hair, the balcony, and the basement. She's even quite nice personality-wise. This was a meeting through OkCupid, by the way. Anyway, we get a seat in the booth table and she sat across from me. Not 1 minute later, just as the waiter shows up to take her order, she leans to one side, the waiter's side, and rips the most impressively enduring and loud fart I've heard any human produce. Utterly ear-shattering. I don't know what happened after that because I was so embarrassed I ran away. Kid you not. She never replied to my messages after that. I only sent 2 apologies and I don't know what happened to her after that. I just remember this bombshell girl with a sweet personality blasting the loudest cannon in Olive Garden that everyone could hear and me running away awkwardly like a startled meerkat. Story 9. First day, it was a costume party. This was around Halloween. I felt kind of weird going on a first day with someone attending a group gathering, but it was a date, and I had been a recluse around that time. I go pick her up and she's dressed up as Meg from Family Guy. Not a deal breaker. I thought that the idea or joke was clever, but the costume itself wasn't that great because many people remarked that's how she always looked. I didn't think she looked bad, but whatever. The restaurant was Joe's Crab Shack and she ordered a giant bucket of crab legs for herself. She ordered it and turned to me and was like, "What are you going to have?" Halfway through the meal, she asked if I wanted to go by her place afterwards to hang out. So far, I'm not completely turned off, so I said I could go hang out for a minute. She gets this really big creepy grin on her face and whispers in my ear, "I'm gonna do something to you." And there it was. I was suddenly stuck with a question of how I was going to get out of this. I paid for both of our meals and told her that my stomach wasn't doing well and I'd rather go home. She then begs me to come home with her and she didn't mean to do anything wrong. I really tried to convince her that my stomach wasn't doing well. Saw her back at work the next day. You work together? Story 10. Chewing tobacco. Well, I find it disgusting in general. I feel I could get over a girl doing it if I really cared for her, but pulling it out and using it on the first date should be a no-go. I remember the first month I moved to Texas. I met this girl in a grocery store, seemed really nice, and we were hitting it off really well. Got her number and asked her out to eat the next day. On our day, we have a nice meal, a few drinks, and we're having a generally good time. Then she reaches into her purse and pulls out a can of chewing tobacco. I didn't think anything about it at first because I know you can reuse those for many things. She then opens it up and pulls the biggest pinch I've ever seen. I mean, it would put the hardest, manliest cowboys to shame and then just shoved it in her mouth. That immediately ruined the whole mood for me. Story 11. Asking how much you make in a year and what your expendable income is. She had a pen in her hand and the napkin in front of her. Met a girl at a Mexican restaurant. At the time, I had an email address which had Arthas in the name. Arthas is a character from Blizzard's Warcraft lore. She asked me what it meant, and I told her. Her response? I hate video games. I wish I could break them all with a freaking hammer. Yeah, don't bash a man's hobbies in a first date. Number 3, talk about how much you miss an ex. Had that happen to me. It's like she was longing for him. Like he had just gone off to war. That made 2 of us who were gone. Number 4, I had a girl tell me that I was heavier than what my picture said I was. It was the very first thing she said to me. My picture was a full body shot and I was wearing clothes that fit and weren't too baggy or too tight. I'm overweight and bulky, a former weightlifter who began struggling with anxiety and depression. Anyway, I hadn't even sat down. I simply stared, turned on my heels, and walked completely in the opposite direction. Story 12. This will probably be buried, but screw it. Don't say you live in one area when you really live an hour and a half away in another major city. Don't invite me back to your place before the first day kicks in, making it sound like you have roommates when in fact you're still living at home with your parents and siblings whom you introduced me to at the end of the first date. After we finish up, don't ask me if I want to know how I compared to other guys in terms of length, girth, and skill. Just don't. The morning after, don't leave your door unlocked so that the aforementioned younger siblings can burst through your door to wake us up for brunch with your parents. Last but not least, when I say, I'm leaving the area in 6 months and never coming back, so I'm not doing long distance. And you say you're cool with that, don't try to get me to change my mind. Story 13. I ended up having my first and only date with a girl who was vegan not too long ago. Not that being vegan is a problem, but it's helpful for the story. To start, the conversation was miserable, and interacting with her was totally awkward. Can't stand going out to dinner with someone who expects me to carry the conversation, but that wasn't even the worst part. What really sealed the deal was when the waitress brought her drinks. Both were water with lemon. She asked if I ever eat my lemon, and while I thought it was a little strange, I said that I didn't, and just chalked it up as a vegan habit. She then proceeds to eat the lemon from her water, rind and all. I was a little disturbed by this, but again, this itself wouldn't have been a nail in the coffin. However, things were about to get so much worse. She then asked if I was going to eat mine, and I once again declined. She reaches over, grabs my straw, and tries to finish the lemon out of my water. I kept my best poker face, but soon lost it when she couldn't get the lemon out with my straw and instead stuck her hand in my drink to grab the lemon and eat it. Needless to say, I was very dehydrated for the rest of my meal while she awkwardly stared at me eating a burger with painfully little conversation. Ladies, if we've been together for several months and you're trying to mess with me, that's one thing. On your first date, though, don't touch anything I'm about to ingest. It's disgusting. That's just baseline etiquette, bro. Story 14. The year was 2005. I met her at a cocktail dinner. She was a Maxim model. I was a communications director for Mayor. She was smoking hot, so I asked her out. Big mistake. She recommended the best sushi place in town, ordered cocktails, expensive plates, and dessert. She talked about this guy that she had just met and fooled around the whole night and then asked if she should text him to meet up after our dinner. She knew I was interested in her. I politely asked the waitress to split the bill. The girl objected. I told her that I was interested in her. I'd asked her out on a date and could tell that she had used me to vent about her latest exploit. I closed it with, I'm not UNICEF, sweetheart. Got up, threw my $60, my half, and got the heck out. She contacted me weeks later. I never responded. Some women are crazy. Story 15. This will be buried, but here goes. I met a girl online and we talked on the phone a bit. We hit it off really well, and she started telling me we were going to have intimacy on the first date and that I was the kind of guy she could tell anything. So I met her at her place, which is a trailer. It was nice, and I'm not judgmental, so we went out to have dinner and watch a movie, and it all went very well. She then asked if she could see my apartment, so we went back to my place. So off we went. We get to my place, I put on some music, and we go to bed. We had intimacy multiple times during the night and was up all night, about 2 hours. So it's time to go to work, and I leave for work at 6:30 a.m. So I said, hey, why don't I fix breakfast? She said, cool. So I fixed a big breakfast, which we both ate. She then stands up and says, I've never been treated so badly in my life. Don't ever speak to me again. I'm stunned. Things went very well. I treated her like gold. I'll admit I was a bit tired, so I wasn't the most talkative person, but things still went very well. So per her request that I never call her again, I don't email or text her. About a week later, I got an email telling me how I'm not a man because a real man would have called to find out what was wrong. I simply replied stating that I was honoring her request to never speak with her again. She replied, a real man wouldn't have let that stop him. Wow, bullet dodged. People who test you are red flags themselves. Story 16. Okay, I moved to CT about 2 years ago now, so I've got a couple. When I decide to date someone, I am looking for a partner. Someone who enjoys doing what I do and vice versa. I've been on so many dates with women who tell me nothing about themselves while drilling me for information. It seems to me that a lot of women don't think that they're being vetted too. I'm so tired of feeling like I'm applying for a subservient position in a woman's life. How much do I make? How tall are you? Where do you want to live in 5 years? I'm not a horse. I'm not a wallet. Do not look at my teeth, check my breeding. I'm happy being single. I love my job and I volunteer as a firefighter so I can help others. I would love to get to know a woman, but I will not interview for the chance to prove myself to one. I value my time and my pride too highly. I would love to have a partner, but oftentimes it seems like I'm paying for dinner to find a new boss. Story 17. I was dating an American girl living in Shanghai, and I decided in a third encounter to bring her to a restaurant where my friends were. She claims she was a clinical psychologist and had legitimate sounding stories to back it up, which implies she's financially secure. Anyway, when we all get around to ordering food, she doesn't want anything but water. Literally nothing on the menu. It was a medium-priced restaurant at about $15 a dish. In the end, she was convinced to get a side salad for $3. Realizing how small it was, about half the size of a palm, the chef came over and said, oh, you wanted something vegetarian? She must have, in embarrassment, said yes, and then proceeded to make a special vegetarian dish, which the charge was reasonable, about $10. As soon as the dish arrived, she took out a Tupperware tub from nowhere and started boxing it up. As my friends and I stared in surprise, one of them asked what she was doing. She jovially replied, putting it in Tupperware. Well, that answered that. I quickly paid her and my part of the bill, left the restaurant quickly, and me and my friends never spoke of this again. So I guess my advice would be, if you do go to a restaurant, be prepared to eat something. Also, please don't bring your own Tupperware. Please. Story 18. Fart. Went on a date with a friend of a coworker. This was during the late 90s .com rush. We were young and had some money to burn. Had a great night, and I was really hoping for more good times ahead. I drove her back to her apartment, where we sat for a few minutes talking some more and bantering about our next possible date. Right then I hear her fart. A proper loud one at that. Without missing a beat, I thought, I repeated a line from the Smartbeat pager commercial. You've got chemistry here. You feel it? Pause, hoping she'd reply, I felt it. Pause continues and I awkwardly say in upspeak, all right, Janet? She just glares at me and bolts out of the car. Saw her here and there at the local bars, but never talked to her again as she seemed to disappear after seeing me. I hope she reads this and knows that it was okay. Actually kind of funny and that I should have just said nothing. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 19. I had a first date with a girl who told me she was ready to settle down and not going to waste time anymore. Told me she wanted her future husband to buy her a 4-wheel drive SUV. Told me she wanted 3 kids, so had to start soon. She was approaching 30 and that body clock was ticking. Then she told me she'd hoped she found the right guy, but if not, she'd marry a high earner and divorce him if it didn't work out because at least the child support payments would be reasonable. Bad, huh? Finally, she asked about my income because she didn't want to waste time on someone that couldn't support her like she expected in the future. Of course, I lied about my income to make sure I got lucky, but that greedy, heartless girl wanted a transaction, right? She was a failure of a person and still expected the world to bow down to her. Story 20. I went out with a girl that told me that I should feel lucky that she even went on a date with me because I'm an Indian guy. She was white. Apparently, Indian guys are creeps and incredibly desperate, and it was a privilege to even talk to this girl. I tried to rationalize it and have to agree there's a few weird Indian dudes on our campus, but 40% of the students here are Indian or Pakistani, so I don't think her observations mean much. Everything else was pretty smoothly that evening. I rarely go on dates because I'm shy. I always wanted a second date, but I walked away from her. She never understood why. She still creeps on my Instagram. Guess who's the creep now? Story 21. One of my pet peeves is being interrogated. Nothing will change my mood like too many questions. I was talking to a girl online and all of a sudden she starts interrogating me all rapid fire like, "What's your name? How old are you? Where do you live? What kind of job do you have? What kind of car do you drive?" I don't mind a couple of questions to get a conversation going, but that was too much. I finally had to respond with, "Whoa, slow down there, Torquemada. This ain't the Inquisition and I'm not a heretic." I blocked her shortly after that. Story 22. Went out with a girl that talked about having 6 kids on the first date. I asked her if she would compromise with 4. She seemed pretty hesitant, but was okay with having 4, but really wanted 6. She really liked having a big family growing up. Then when asked about a career, she told me she was going to college for a psychology degree just to buy time until she gets married and becomes a stay-at-home mom. Got a message from her 3 months later asking me why it didn't work out. She's back in school. Couldn't even give that girl a response. Just felt like she wanted to mooch off me my whole life. I couldn't have that. Story 23. First date with a girl. She has a shoebox with her. I'm thinking, okay, maybe she brought something fun for later. Order dinner. Conversation is mild. Food. Weather. What we like to do. Order dessert. She opens the shoebox and takes out a knitting needle and some wool. Starts working on a scarf. Badly made, by the way. She doesn't say anything about it, just starts making the scarf while talking to me. I'm trying to think to myself why anyone would bring their part-time hobby to a nice restaurant on a first date. Can't think of anything. Finally, I ask her. She tells me that she wants to start a business selling knitted items on Etsy. I respect all hobbies, but seriously, it wasn't charming, cute, or endearing. It was just straight up weird and honestly rude. I gave her a second chance and took her to a more casual restaurant, and she complained about it being too low class. So, willing to give her a third shot, we went out to the movies. The King's Speech. She took her shoebox and a goddamn reading lamp so that she could knit. I had to sit in the very back corner of the theater so no one would complain about the champion knitter on my right. I told her that things weren't going to work out and that I was offended that she decided to spend half of her time in a part-time hobby while we were out. She blew up on me and called me ungentlemanlike and told me I was unsupportive. I dropped her off at her parents' house. Yup, there she attempted to get me to grab her melons. Only time in my life where I declined a free melon. Should have hit and run, man. Story 24. I met a chick online. Cute face, but before long I realized her profile pic was only a headshot because she must have weighed 300 pounds when she waddled into the bar for our first date. To make matters worse, she brought along a hotter friend with her. What the heck? She then proceeded to spend over 20 minutes in the bathroom, either hiding in shame or crapping brains. Meanwhile, I'm chatting up a hot friend. Things got too weird. I put a 20 on the table and walked out. Bizarre. And for the record, I have no problem with big girls, but this one misinterpreted herself and brought along a thinner, hotter friend. What the heck? Story 25. Day went great. Chemistry was there, and I was totally looking forward to seeing her again. She was cool. I found her attractive, and quite frankly, was really hoping it would work out because she seemed like definite girlfriend material. Then, after I took a chance and a kiss goodnight, which paid off, I put her in a cab saying I really hoped she wanted to do this again soon. 5 minutes later, she called me practically hysterically demanding to know if I was serious about wanting to see her again. Practically in tears and while talking to me on the phone, yelling for the cab driver to turn around and take her back. She was insane. Over the top clingy and needy, and I managed to hold it in check for the whole date. I went from really pumped about seeing her again to completely turned off. Didn't see her again and was honest with her why. Story 26. I had been set up with this girl I'd never met through an online dating website. The date had started off really well. We had a lot of the same interests and tastes in food. And after consuming a few after-dinner drinks, she began confessing to me some of her darker secrets. I remember the look in her eyes when she told me she had begun to grow very suspicious about a puddle in our apartment complex's parking lot. I was flabbergasted, to say the least, and thought I had misheard her. The bar we were in was fairly loud, and asked her to repeat herself, which she promptly did. Puddle, I said. She explained to me that every day the puddle would get bigger, even if it didn't rain. At one point I think she hinted that she had started talking to it, but it was very loud and she was hard to hear. I eventually thanked her for a pleasant evening, departed, and never went back to that bar out of the fear she might be there. Well, you don't really know what she talked about because the bar was loud. Story 27. I was asked on a date by a Spanish girl that I met on a train in the UK. The first date wasn't actually that bad. She told me she'd be bringing a female friend with her and asked me to bring a male friend along too as a sort of double date. A bit odd, but I figured she didn't really know anything about me and that it was for the sake of safety, etc. Date went fine. Not amazing, but we arranged another one. Second date, she had brought along 4 extra people from her language class, and it became clear that I was just there to help them all practice their English. Also, her friend from the first date revealed that this girl already had a boyfriend. I left. A boyfriend? Story 28. I have come to loathe the women that seem incapable of forming a unique thought or question. In my more desperate days of online dating, I'd get a reply to a message, then start the usual conversation. It would be damn near one-sided. I ask all the questions, and she just bounces the same question back at me. This continues when you ask for more varied opinions once you actually get out on a date. Every answer turns into, I don't know, which is actually code for, I just don't want to use my brain to form a coherent thought. If it isn't a code for that, it's a huge red flag telling you they have zero confidence in their own thoughts or opinions. Either way, I don't want to date a rubber wall or a mirror that just bounces my words back at me and never produces anything interesting. Nowadays, there are 2 tests that I run when messaging someone. Number 1, see if they can ask unique questions and actually hold a conversation. Number 2, see if they will initiate contact in some way, via texting you when you give your number or sending messages without being prompted with a question. Those 2 things are a must for me now. Story 29. I went on a date with a girl I met in an old job. She was really into me and made it obvious enough for someone as oblivious as me to notice. Huge positive for me. We've already had lunch a couple times at work, so I figure we're good to go for a full-on dinner date and pick a small Italian restaurant in my town. She insists on driving. I figure she's not comfortable giving up that much control, and I can understand that. We get to the restaurant, and she accidentally pulls into the exit, which isn't a big deal, but she's panicking that they'll know. That's a fairly poorly designed lot in her defense. We get in the restaurant, and she flips out because she thought her boss was at the bar. He wasn't. And then it hit me that she was paranoid because she was spiked as hell. If you smoke, that's fine by me, but show up to our date sober, please. Things got worse from there, but I'm tired of the story, so I'll wrap it up. On our first date, I don't want to hang out with your friends, and I don't want to sit outside their house while you get more spiked. Story 30. I went on a first date for coffee with a girl. She kept asking, "Why are you looking at me?" First time I replied, "Well, we're having a conversation in coffee. I usually look at someone who I'm talking to." She didn't reply to this. The conversation continued for a little bit, then, "Why are you looking at me?" So I replied, "Where do you want me to look?" She didn't reply. Conversation continued for a few minutes, then, "Why are you looking at me?" So me being a bit frustrated with how I would handle this situation says, "Well, I could look at the counter here to my left, but don't you think that would be a bit strange since I'm talking to you and you were sitting in front of me?" She didn't respond. The conversation continued about something mundane. 2 minutes later, her, "Why are you looking at me?" Me, "Excuse me, I have a bus to catch." So why were you looking at her? Story 31. I met a girl online once. Went on a first date and it was great. She seemed normal. Woke up and went to church the next morning where I used to teach a 6th grade Sunday school class. The kids there have tiny attention spans, so I turned my phone off to not distract them. Got out of church around noon and turned my phone on to see that I had 9 texts and 13 voicemails ranging from, "Hey, thanks for last night," to, "I freaking hate you. I can't believe you would do this to me. You're such a pig. I thought you were different. I thought you cared." Mind you, church was 3 hours long. I texted her good morning beforehand and told her I had church, and we kissed once at the end of the date. Clingy girls like this make guys run for the hills as fast as possible. Story 32. Girls, make sure you look like your profile picture and live up to the stats you put on your profile. I live in New York City as an on and off single for many years, and I've been on many dozens of OKC and other dates over these years. And I've seen crazy discrepancies that obviously end in date failure. If you're chubby and don't look like you did when you were 23 just out of college, fine. I'm not perfect. But if those are the only pictures you put on your profile, I'll expect to find someone something like the person pictured. Adding 50 pounds and leaving that out ain't okay. I've been on dates where someone wrote they were 5'3" tall, I'm 6 foot, and thought, short? Okay, fine. The person who showed up was like 4'8". What the heck? You'll find a guy who's 5'5". Don't lie. I'm not perfect and I'm not against any body type or race and so on, but bait and switch does not fly. Story 33. I took this girl to a movie. Everything goes fine. We have dinner after the movie, then she starts talking about some guy I don't even know who talked crap about her and called her names. Then she pulls out her phone and starts showing me texts he sent her. I try to tell her that she shouldn't take some schmuck this seriously, but she's not having any of it and just keeps going on and on about this guy. Finally, I ask, "What do you want me to do? Roughen him up for you?" And she actually said that I need to do it to show her that I care. Let's just say that the date ended on an awkward note. She didn't even want me to drive her home.
Story 34. I recently went on a date with a woman I met on a dating site. Her handle was I love Louis C.K. That should have been a red flag. After a bunch of messages back and forth, she asks me out for a few drinks, and we decide on a cozy little place. I show up and waited 20 minutes before realizing she was a no-show. So I leave, angry for being stood up. As I'm leaving, I text her, telling her that she wasted my time and so on. I walked over to another bar to visit a friend who was working and I could share my sorrows. As I'm having my first drink, the woman replies saying she had forgotten that she felt bad and that she was on her way. I hesitated for a minute until my friend encouraged me to give it a second chance. Crap happens, he said. So I obliged and told her to meet me at the bar I was at. She shows up, and the moment I see her, I realize she does not look anything like the pic she had on her profile. This person was a lot heavier. I thought, screw it. At least she can buy me a drink. So there we are, chatting about everything and nothing, but throughout the conversation, I begin to sense that a lot of the opinions she had sounded very familiar. So I excuse myself for a bathroom break and quickly do a Google search on some of the comments she made, and sure enough, all her opinions turns out to be exact quotes from comedian Louis C.K. I went back to our table and continued our conversation. The moment she used another famous quote, I had to call her on it because it was downright deceptive. She denied it, saying, "What? No way, because that would mean I'm crazy." I just looked at her incredulously, paid for my drink, and left. Story 35. Didn't happen to me on my first day, but my first week with her, we spent a lot of time together. I mean, a lot of time together, which was nice at first. We had intimacy the second day dating, and she was super comfortable with me, and we got along. Well, towards the end of the first week, I told her, hey, I want to go hang out with my buddies and have a guys' night. Probably just play poker and drink. She responds, well, why can't I be there? I don't trust you. This was an instant red flag, and I dumped her 3 weeks later because I let my Johnson think for me most of the time. Story 36. You unilaterally upgrade your coffee and tea date to lunch and then don't even bring money with you. Then after I pay for your meal, you only eat half of it. And I know your fat bum was hungry. Then go for drinks afterward and bring the total cost of the date to $58 for me and say you'll pay for the next one. Meet up a week later for lunch again and you bring a $5 pizza and demand I bring some sort of dessert. Which, I already spent $58 on you. You owe me something. Then spend the second date explaining how your brothers are in prison and gone. You never finished high school and you have no interest in getting a GED because Walmart is good enough for you. Meet up for a third date and give me the worst fiddling of all time and you have roaches all over your apartment and on your body. Got the hell out of there and told her a couple of days later it wasn't going to work out. Roaches on her body? Excuse me? Story 37. Late to the conversation, but would still like to share. I met this girl online, and it turns out she lives an hour and 30 away and has no car, and she would also like to hang out at my place as opposed to hers. I'd been in a bit of a drought, so I said screw it and agreed to drive out and pick her up. Here's where it gets crazy. I arrive and let her know I'm there. She comes outside, opens the passenger door and says, okay, we gotta get out of here. No hello, nice to meet you in person, just we gotta go. I ask her why, and she says the police have it out for her since she punched one in the face and we will get screwed if we linger too long. Already the crazy bells are sounding the alarm and I think to myself, go home or do I see where this crazy night goes? I decide to see where the craziness goes. Fast forward, I'm cruising down the highway, we're chatting, where she lets all issues out. Example, she's a mother to 3 at 25 and has custody of none of them. I'm not paying attention to my speed. Crap, getting pulled over. Cops come over the passenger window and this chick just starts flipping the crap out of this cop. I calmly tell her to shut her mouth and let me handle this. The cop gives me a smile of appreciation and says I can go on my way and to watch my speed. Cool. This is getting longer than I thought it would be, so to quicken the story, she continued to be crazy and it was okay. Drive her home the next morning. 20 minutes into my solo drive back, I'm feeling pretty good about the whole thing until I get a text that says, rent is not bad by you. I'm looking at places. Me. No, do not do that. Story 38. Verbally trashed everything I just said I liked. I went on a nightmare date like this. The girl was cute, we sat down to eat and started chatting. The plan was to eat and then go to see an opera. I'm an opera singer, so it starred my friends and I thought it would be an icebreaker. She asked me what I liked. I explained I liked video games, football, comic books, etc. She then proceeded to tear into why she hated each one of those things. She then described a bunch of crap she liked, which I coincidentally hate, like reality TV. The day was rapidly going downhill, but I was kind of in it for the long haul, so I just started rambling about opera, which from my perspective seemed to be the only common ground. After dinner, she said, "You talk about opera too much." We then went to see the opera, and I enjoyed seeing my friends, but was basically done with the date. Seeing her off to the train, she then blindsided me by saying completely serious, "We should go out again sometime." I ran the heck back to my friends and never called her again. "We should go out again sometime." Story 39. Met a girl at a bar. We hit it off. We went back to her place, fooled around, and I stayed the night. Next day, she takes me to a pregame party and proceeds to inform everyone that I'm her boyfriend. Subsequently, triggering her male friend with a Napoleon complex to constantly badger me about how easy it would be for him to be SF in the Army, given I'm in the Army, and from there on out, my buddy that I brought, and I refer to him as Aglaso. I know it's not Spanish. Anyways, a few overly intoxicated people throwing up later, the girl I'm with runs out of the bathroom crying and screaming at me she never wants to see me again. Turns out El Glasso claimed in our conversation I only wanted to use her for intimacy. And suddenly it's me and my buddy with 5 intoxicated guys who want to fight me for taking advantage of her. The girl eventually figures out they lied, calls me later to come back to her apartment, and we fooled around again. I stayed the night, all is well. That morning, all she does is rant about how her ex used her and how she has a horrible life and give me the whole sob story, following it all up with that she thinks I'm the love of her life. I didn't cease communication, but I sure as crap didn't hang out with her again. On the bright side, my buddies and I all use El Glasso as code for dudes with small Johnson syndrome. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're gonna love this. Catch you in that video.